All right, before we dive into this, quick disclaimer, this is not a high gain, super ultra chuggy gent thal machine. So if that's what you're looking for, I'll just save you the time right now. You can click away from the video. That's not what this is. However, if you're looking for something that's dirty, aggressive, and has a bit of that essence of the true cult black metal spice that you might want to have, well, this is a little example of what you can get. Today we're looking at the Aurora Diamond Sound suite based on the Laboga Diamond Sound amp. So these are real amps, and as you can see here, we have a 100 watt version and a 40 watt version represented here. So it's a suite built on amps that exist for real. Now if you don't know who Laboga are, they are a very well-known boutique Polish amp brand. They are well known for their construction, the high quality work that they do, the point-to-point work that they do by hand with their amps, and they are considered extremely high quality, but with a price tag. If you want to buy one of these amps for real, you're looking at 2,000 to 3,000 euro per amp, plus shipping and everything else on top of that. So they are high quality hand-built amps. Now, we're looking at the interface here, you can kind of already expect something. You know, this is not going to be a super tight, high gain style amp. We're obviously looking at something more low gain that could be considered like a Marshall Plexi type of style. This is why I said early on in the video, if you're just looking for some super chugga PB type of style amp, this is not it. Let's go ahead and have a quick look at the interface here. It's pretty much your standard affair. You've got the pages down here of all the different aspects, and then you got your pedals, your two amps here, you have the cab section, you have an extra processing section, which I think they've lifted from the Laney Digbeth. This seems to be the same module set. You have an EQ page here, and then a pedal page here at the end. Pretty much all that you would expect to have with a modern amp simulator suite these days. Everything that you would really need to craft a tone, to create cool presets, and so on and so forth. Speaking of presets, I have created presets for this amp simulator suite, and they are included when you purchase, and you'll be able to use them. I'll show you guys the presets, and we'll go over those, and as well as everything else. The first thing I would like to point out here is the 100 watt version would be considered the more old school version of it. Now, if you look for videos about this amp on YouTube, you're pretty much going to find just dudes doing dad rock. It's going to be this style of amp that most people are going to showcase, you know, the dad rock, the cleans, the extra breakup tones, all this kind of stuff. However, I really found that this 100 watt version lended itself perfectly well for black metal. There's a couple other things I would like to note specifically. A lot of this is self-explanatory, so I'm not going to go through everything, you know, and just bore you with the major detail, the main details that you probably already know just by looking at it. There's a couple of specific points I really want to touch. First of all, this overdrive is not the typical green 808 screamer that you're used to using. This definitely is more of a character overdrive, and you're really going to want to spend some time working with both the drive and the volume knobs here in conjunction with the treble to kind of change and shape the tone a little bit. I really didn't find a lot of success with just dumping the drive, increasing the volume, and doing, you know, the classic screamer settings. It really didn't work the same way. So I definitely would say this is going to add a bit more character to the guitar tone, more so than just, you know, cleaning up, you know, the low end and things like this. The octaver, this is a really interesting pedal. You can add a lot of funny, interesting effects to the guitar tones. I was experimenting, kind of trying to recreate the Jupiter Effects Catastrophe with this, which has an octaver built into it that you can adjust with the dial. It was cool, but I ended up not, you know, creating a preset for it because it's really what I would consider maybe for leads or adding a little bit of extra sauce, very specifically on certain parts. Really didn't end up using it. The fuzz pedal, it's a fuzz pedal. I made a really cool preset using the fuzz pedal, but the winning pedal here, in my opinion, is the 6-band EQ. Without this pedal included in the suite, I don't think the suite would be nearly as robust as it is. This 6-band EQ really allows you to adjust and shape the DI going into the amp itself. You can create some very interesting tones. You can really shape the low end out of it, and you can really boost the upper chainsaw aspect of a guitar tone, which I did for one of the presets that I'm going to show you. Really like the inclusion of the 6-band EQ. I think it really adds life to the amp simulator, and it's really going to help you shape tones far and beyond just, using the overdrive here. Now, as far as the amps, like I said, this 100-watt version I felt lended itself well to black metal. It's definitely more of the old school, I wouldn't say loose, but it has a bit of a squishy type of thickness to it that you're not going to get with modern amps, as opposed to the 40-watt version, which I think would be more suited to modern style tones. If you look at the website, this one has 3 different gain stages. Actually, you have just the regular gain. You can include or turn on the drive here, and then there's a booster. So if you have an extended range guitar or a baritone guitar, probably the 40-watt is the one you probably are going to be gravitating towards. I really didn't use this for high gain tones. I really enjoyed the 100-watt version a lot more. Instead, I used the 40-watt version to create a clean tone preset, which I'll show you guys. The cab page here, there's 4 different cabinets. On the website, if I remember correctly, there's going to be a creamback, so like an MT77, I think it's a Veteran 30, and then I believe just a regular V30. And the cool thing about this is you can mix and match the cabinets themselves, so you're not stuck with just one cabinet with the microphones on both sides of the speakers. You can change the cabinets so you can blend different speakers, which is a great aspect of tone crafting. You can take a bright speaker and blend it more with a dark speaker, and the frequency masking will help create a more well-rounded tone. Then you have 4 different microphones to choose from here. You have the 421, the 121, the 57, and then the tube 47 tube condenser. So these are 4 different microphones that have different EQ profiles that'll really help you create a unique tone and do tone crafting here. Obviously, you can adjust the angle, the distance, and the position, where it is on the speaker. That all, I think we're all pretty used to this by now. Additionally, you can add some extra air, which is a high shelf, to the EQ profile of the IR itself, or the speaker, or whatever settings you come up with. And then I think this is a great feature here. You can export the IR itself, so whatever combination you come up here with, either mixing the cabs and speakers and microphones, you can click that button and export an IR, which you could use in a different IR loader with a different amp simulator. And you also have the option of exporting it with the high shelf boost that you have created here. Really great feature to include that might be useful for you. And then obviously, of course, you can just import an IR that you would want to use, and that's all pretty standard affair here. Moving on to here, like I said, this looks like more of a bass processing setup here. I didn't use the BBE Sonic Maximizer or the 76 or the L2 here. I just generally don't use those things anyway when shaping guitar tones, but it's cool that it's here. The BBE kind of, back in the late 90s, early 2000s, this was kind of a cool thing to have in your rack to really shape, as it says here, the low contour and the processing of the high frequencies. Be very careful with that in general, because you can really destroy your guitar tone. I am partial to using API style EQs with my guitar tones. I've showed you guys that on this channel many times, where I will do like a 7K or a 12K boost on my guitar tone to add some extra air or presence into my guitar tone, and also do some mid cutting, which I have done here for this preset. Now we have the EQ page. This is a cool addition, I think, although I'm really not going to go hog wild in here and do surgical EQ. I mean, the goal is to have a really good sounding guitar tone where you don't need to do a bunch of surgical EQ. But here I opted to do a low cut, a high cut, and then my secret EQ, move that I showed you guys many years ago on my channel. I can probably put it up here in the cards or whatever, check it out. But this is pretty much what I opt to do here, just very subtle basic tone shaping. And then anything else that I might want to do in the session, I will just do in Cubase. And then finally, we have the effects pedals here at the end. I would say these are decently robust. I mean, if you want something very specific, like a black hole style reverb or more of a shimmer reverb, you're probably going to use your own plugin anyway. But it's not bad that these are included in here. You have some decent tone shaping options, like, changing the high pass and low pass filters to make something darker, for example, a reverb. Different mix knobs and sizes and pre-delays. Everything that you would kind of expect to have with pretty much a nice standard tremolo, chorus, or delay and reverb pedal. I probably would still opt to use a plugin after the fact in the DAW. Now, there's one last thing I want to mention here. I'm using the VST version of this plugin, so it's not shown here. Down here by the output knob, when you're using this in standalone, there's going to be an option here where you can use it as, it's going to say studio environment. Now, this is specifically if you're using headphones. The way that it was explained to me, Dan said it's going to add a little bit of space into the headphones to kind of make it sound like you're in a room of sorts. He said it's really to help with ear fatigue and not make things so direct. That all makes sense, and that's pretty cool for jamming. However, I would caution you, I probably wouldn't use that if you're trying to build some presets or you're trying to do some mixing, you're trying to have a really good idea of what the tone actually sounds like, because I'm not sure what the processing is there in order to add space, you know what I mean? So it's not directly into your ear. So just keep that in mind. A couple of last things to note. Up here on the top right side of the interface here, there is a button for mono stereo. You're going to have to engage this. So if you use this on a group track like I am, you need to click on this and make sure it's in stereo mode. Otherwise, it's going to be in mono, and you're going to be curious like, what the fuck? Why does it sound so weird? So pay attention to that. This mono stereo button needs to be manually engaged. After that, you have MIDI mapping for all the crazy shit that people do with MIDI and guitar tones these days. I don't do any of that, but if you're into that, then you know what this means, and there you go. You've got a tuner here, which actually I kind of really enjoyed. Sometimes I'm not a big fan of tuners built into Amp Simulator suites because they just don't seem to be very accurate. I literally tend to use the GVST tune, which seems to be almost like the best tuner ever. It's free, so that's cool. The other good thing to note here is you can change the tuning pitch. So if you're working in something like 432 hertz, you can change that and tune it. I really enjoy that. Put that back to 440. So there's the tuner, and it is pretty good, pretty accurate. And then finally, we have the input, the gate, and the transpose feature if you want to do some detuning or things like this to test harmonies, or just, you want to tune the guitar down or do something interesting. And then finally, we have the preset menu up here on top. Here are my presets. These come with the plugin, so when you purchase the plugin, they will be in here for you to play with. And we're going to talk about these presets because I want to show you what kind of tones that can be had for black metal style music. So let's just start with a clean tone. It sounds like this. So really cool, just decent clean tone. The idea behind that was just make it cold, add a little bit of delay and reverb in here so it's baked in. If you don't like the reverb and delay that I have here, you can just use your own settings or your own plugin. But like I said, I opted to use the 40 watt here. I just thought it sounded cool, and I'm just going for one of those Immortal style clean tones that's just it's very surgical, very cold sounding, which is why it's called Ice Cold Room. Nothing really to talk about there. It's a clean tone. Generally don't do clean tones here. But I do want to make mention here again that I am using the EQ pedal here to help dig out some of the mids. Again, just to make it pretty cold sounding, not a lot of warmth or low end in the clean tone. Now, if we go to the rhythm guitars here, this is where things become very interesting. So if we just listen to this tone by itself, you can tell it has that Marshall style grunt to it, but interestingly, it also has a little bit of flavor and texture into the tone. You can definitely hear that it's not just compressed to shit and the low end is super tight. It's definitely got some movement in the low end, and when you're playing it, it can feel a bit soft and squishy almost, like I mentioned before, kind of like that plexi style into it, which in my opinion lends itself very well to these styles of black metal where maybe you want to have more of that old sound, but in a modern context. So you have a great sounding amp here that can do those old school tones, but in a modern context where it doesn't sound completely like garbage. I want to mention again that I am making use of the pedal here because I want to accentuate some of those higher frequencies for more of the, will call it like the chainsaw frequency, but also I am digging out some mids here to help not drop the entire bottom end out of the tone, but just to take a little bit out of that mid-range area to make it not so boxy and boomy sounding. So we'll listen to the difference here. So it's very slightly cleaning up the mid-range there so that it's not so gunky and boomy and flubby down there, but we're still keeping the essence of the amp. And as you can hear, the overdrive, I have a lot of volume here, and I have a decent amount of drive here, right? But we don't have a super tight clinical sound. It's got some flubbiness to it. It's got some noise and grit and character to it that I think, you need with black metal sometimes. You really want to get, just that body into there, right? And it sounds pretty wide. There's no reverb on this. I'm not doing anything, processing wise in that sense. I'm just doing the basic EQ moves here. I just have some Aurora, let's see, the 510, the Aurora DSP version of the API, again, digging out some mids, accentuating the highs a little bit here. And then here are my cab settings. Just a pretty classic situation, a 421 mixed with an SM57 with, let's see, we got a 60% favor to the 421. So this is a fantastic black metal guitar tone. Now, in context of everything, it's going to sound like this. I'm going to put the leads on as well. So with that drone note there, it just sounds really big and full. And that's what I really liked about this when I was playing with it, is it just sounds full. Like the bass is in there, obviously, but the guitar tone's fat to some degree, and it's full. So I really enjoyed it, and I think it lends itself, again, well to black metal. Speaking of the leads, let's go ahead and have a look at the leads. Here's the lead preset. I am using a little bit of delay just to add some space to it. It's not a lot. Mix knob is like 25%. Nothing spectacular here, and the leads sound like this. As you can hear, it kind of has that squeaky type of plexi attack to it, which I really like. And I have a lot of mids on this, but it still, in a way, sounds a little bit scooped. But having so much mids into the tone like this really sets the tone on top of the rhythm guitar. Very important. And obviously, of course, I have different microphone settings to keep the attack and the presence of like the M421 here, MD421, but then kind of evening out here with the tube microphone to kind of make it not so bright and hurtful with the ears. So that's the Black Metal League preset. Like I said, it's all baked into the plugin. You're going to get these presets when you get the plugin. Now there are a couple more presets that I made here for rhythm guitar. If you go down here, Chernobyl Audio, let's go to Bloody Chainsaws. This is exactly what you think it sounds like. Now let me go to the pedal page first and show you what I'm doing. So I'm making use of the fuzz pedal here. Now if I turn off the 6-band EQ, I just want to show how powerful this thing is. With just the fuzz pedal, we get a result, that we would be expecting, right? This is what it sounds like. Dirty, fuzzy, thick doom metal, right? But it doesn't really have that grind that we might want to have, with the chainsaw style. This is where the EQ pedal comes in. So like I'm saying, if you know how to use an EQ pedal, you can pretty much create any tone that you want to create here. You have a lot of extra life baked into the Amp Simulator suite because of this 6-band EQ. So this is the Bloody Chainsaws preset, and it just sounds fat and huge, perfect for big chords, doom metal, or if you want to use it as a doubling device under a set of good sounding guitar tones, you can sneak this under here, layer it in, fatten up the tone, add a little bit of extra character. Even great for fat, it's great for fat tones, but it can even lend itself well to a little bit of perhaps tremolo picking on a single string like this. So you can definitely get, a little bit more of that Swedish bloodbath style in there. You can double it up with something and it'll sound pretty cool. I have also created kind of an HM2 scalpel tone. Wanted to have something that had more of the HM2 essence to it, but a lot more note articulation. This, we're getting into the territory of almost painful, but it's still a bit musical. Again, I would probably use this not as a main tone, but something as like an added tone on the bottom of something for blending. But it can still be used for, single notes or tremolo picking on a string, chords, or doing some leads like here. Again, you can hear that almost like that squeaky, squishy, plexi type sound in there with the pick attack. I really like that. I think it sounds pretty cool. It's just something unique, different from the, bog standard PV. And that covers the presets. So we have black metal lead, we have a clean tone, ice cold room, and then 3 different rhythm guitar tones that you can play with. And like I said, you can put them all together. You can work with them all. You can create something. You can adjust them the way that you want. So if we go to the low gain black metal and we listen to everything in context, we're going to get something that sounds pretty cool. And I just want to show you guys, after showing that demo, that there is nothing going on here behind the scenes. If we look here, bass has the most amount of processing because it's bass. Now, if you look at the rhythm guitars here and my leads, there's nothing going on here. There's no extra EQ. There's no secret sauce happening anywhere. We look over here on my bus channels here, group channels. It's just the Laboga DS. There's no extra EQ. There's nothing else happening. And on the master chain, it's just a limiter. That's it. So there's no secrets. I'm not trying to hide something from you. I haven't done any extra EQ anywhere. This is just the actual demo that I created. And just to press play here again for you guys. So how it sounds right there is exactly how it sounds. Those are how the presets actually legitimately sound. So that's going to do it for the video, guys. The Aurora DSP Diamond Sound from Laboga. Great set of amps. Again, more geared towards the low gain style of things. That has a bit more character and grit and dirt. Not really for the genty thal type people. So if you're looking to do some black metal, kind of have the essence of the old school sound in a modern context, this could be a great thing to look into. And obviously I have the presets there that you can use until your heart's content to write your own music. I hope you really like them. Had a lot of fun creating them. And finally, a big shout out to Dan at Aurora DSP who asked me to check out this plugin. It was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I really liked the 6-band EQ. I played around with that for quite a while and I found it to be very useful. Like, great addition to the suite. Actually, it could be cool if other companies maybe thought about doing this as well, because that is an awesome way to extend the life of an amp simulator suite. All right, link down in the description. It is not an affiliate link. I don't get any commissions from the link. It's just a link to the website to the amp simulator that you can pick up. So So if you pick it up and you try my presets, come back and let me know what you think of them. I'd be curious to hear your thoughts, all right? Thanks guys for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.